Hey everyone, it's Liz, the Frugal Libertarian, and I wanted to talk about something that kind of annoys me with all of these big cable news channels. Specifically, I've seen Tucker Carlson do it quite a few times. I'm still a big Tucker Carlson fan. I like him. I find him entertaining. I find him informative. But there's one thing he does a lot that other news networks do as well, which drives me absolutely up the wall, which is they will have on the defense attorney of someone who is representing somebody that has been accused of a crime, and they will basically hound the defense attorney, trying to get them to say whether or not the person is guilty or innocent. And then they'll go into the how dare you represent them, what they did was reprehensible, there's no excuse for it, it's disgusting, and how dare you, you're a horrible person for representing them in court. This really bothers me because the right to have, first of all, charges brought against you, that you know what they are, to go in front of a judge, and then if you choose to go in front of a jury, that's a possibility too, but the right to a jury trial and the right to representation for that trial is a really, really important key part of the American justice system. First of all, a defense attorney who goes on TV and says, oh no, my client's guilty, but I have to represent them in court because it's my job, is gonna get disbarred. So the idea of having the mom thinking you're gonna get them to admit that the person is guilty, it's just ridiculous. I don't know why the defense attorneys are agreeing to come on the show, to tell you the truth. If I was a defense attorney, I would refuse, because that's ridiculous. You know, my personal opinions don't matter. I'm doing a very specific job, and an essential and necessary job. But it makes me think about John Adams, founding father John Adams, and how he defended the British soldiers who were part of the Boston Massacre. And he defended them because nobody else would take their case. So to Adams, it was important that every person have the right to a representation in the court, that they have somebody fighting on their behalf, making sure that evidence is brought forward, making sure that things are done in a legal way. He believed very strongly that everyone had that right. And when he was told that nobody was taking their case because nobody wanted to touch it, he took it, became very unpopular because of it, because nobody else wanted them to be represented, everybody else wanted them hung. But he took the case and ended up proving that they were actually innocent. And it wasn't until later, when they went back to England and were arrested again and told that a trial that's not held on English soil, a trial that's held in the colonies, isn't legal, and therefore you have to be retried, and 2 of them were found guilty. And Adams, basically, that was when they lost him. That's when he became part of the rebel half of the revolution, because to him, the rule of law had been removed. This is not the only time I've seen somebody on TV do this. It's quite a frequent thing. It seems like the defense attorney ends up on a news show and gets grilled about how awful it is that they're doing this. It's similar to the people complaining about Hillary Clinton, that when she worked as a defense attorney, she defended a child rapist and got him off of the charges because of some technicality. No, the technicality was that the government screwed something up and allowed for the person to get off of the charges because they didn't do what they were supposed to do right. The blame doesn't lie with Hillary Clinton, it lies with the government who screwed up. And the same thing with all these cases now. Like, for example, it was just last night that Tucker had on the attorney who was defending the professor who was identified by 4chan as the man hitting people over the head with a bike lock and sending people to the hospital. That the police decided there was enough evidence against him to arrest him, and now he's being brought up on charges, and he of course has a lawyer that's representing him, and Tucker was just grilling the guy about how could you represent him, etc., etc. I really want, and the attorneys never say it, I always want them to say something along the lines of, I'm doing it because it's my job to defend somebody. Everyone has an equal right to representation when the government is bringing charges against you that are going to remove your rights. Unfortunately, it seems like most lawyers aren't trained to go in front of a television camera and have to plead their own personal innocence. To sit there and go, even I've heard him say to attorneys things like, how do you sleep at night and stuff like that, because they sleep at night because it's a very important part of the job. If there were no defense attorneys, the government would just do whatever the hell it wanted with us. But I've heard people before, not on TV necessarily, but in my personal life, say things like, we need to get rid of the Miranda rights system because people, it allows criminals to get off on technicalities, and that's not fair. That's bad for society. So they shouldn't have a system of rights that are in place for them, and if the officer should just be allowed to do whatever they want, things like that. People bring up there should not be search warrants issued because if the government has to get a search warrant, you're going to get away with stuff. More people are going to get away with things. They should just be allowed to search whenever they want. Same thing after the Boston Marathon bombing, when Sarnev was arrested and they revealed who his attorneys were going to be and all of that, and how much money the court was going to cost the taxpayer, how much the attorneys were going to cost, how much having the courtroom there was going to cost, and people were screaming that just execute him, we all know he's guilty. Well, people aren't judged in the court of public opinion, they're judged in a court of law. And that's a very different place with very different standards. I know I personally, on the court of public opinion, was on the anti-Zimmerman train. Because I'm sitting there going, oh, he doesn't have a scratch on him, he looks perfectly fine. Oh, this is ridiculous. He was told to stay in his truck and he left, and I just bought into it and bought into it and bought into it. And then at some point, I had somebody say to me, do you realize all that stuff is invented by the media? That the 911 call was edited? That they used a mugshot that was from a DUI he had years earlier? They didn't use the mugshot from the night of the incident? And that started to kind of unravel my opinion, because I started to look more critically at it, and instead of looking at it from, we all know he's guilty, how dare they do this, I started to look at it as, well, if I was on the jury, what was the evidence I was provided, and looking at the evidence they were provided, would I have come up with the same conclusion? A lot of people don't like this, and I understand that. They think it's too expensive, it wastes time, it allows criminals to go free, but they're not looking at the fact that if you are not a criminal, if you are truly innocent, should you just be locked up because the court of public opinion thinks you're guilty, just because the government claims you're guilty? Should you just have every right removed immediately the second there's even a single possibility that you might have broken the law? No. The whole point of the justice system is supposed to be not just we lock people up, we punish. It's also supposed to be that we have checks in place to protect the innocent from improper government behavior and from being judged by the general public as a whole. It's the same thing with O.J. Simpson. Everybody always says, well, he was found guilty in the civil lawsuit, so that proves he was really guilty in the criminal case and he got away with things. There's not the same standard of proof in both courts. The standard of proof for a criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt, meaning you are 99.9% sure the person is guilty. If it drops at all, you cannot convict them, because if you have any doubt at all, there's a chance they're innocent and they shouldn't be punished for something they didn't do. Civil court is the standard of more likely than not. So 51% you did, 49% you didn't. Okay, we'll go with the 51%. It's a very, very different standard. Both courts can look at the decision of the other court and use it as evidence towards the case they're currently looking at, they're currently reviewing, but they cannot use the same standard of proof. O.J. Simpson being found guilty in a civil court does not prove his total criminal guilt, because, again, all they have to do is tip the scales to 51%, and that's what they were able to do. That's not beyond a reasonable doubt. That's more likely than not. You know, whether or not he was guilty or not is up to your own belief. But that's kind of the point, again, of a defense attorney, is if there is any doubt whatsoever, that person needs to be defended. That doubt needs to be put in, because, again, we don't want to see innocent people locked up. We don't want to see innocent people punished. We don't want prisons overcrowded with innocent people who are just accused of a crime, or innocent people put to death because, well, we all know they're guilty. No, we have a system in place to protect both the guilty and the innocent. So it's very, very important that we have these judges in place. It's very, very, very important that every single person accused of a crime, every single person who has charges brought against them, both has representation and is given their time in court to defend themselves. And I just sit there and yell at the TV when I see a defense attorney go on and the person interviewing them is just harassing them on a personal level. How do you sleep at night? How would you feel if this was done to your child? That kind of thing. Because that's not the issue. The defense attorney does not determine whether someone is guilty or innocent. The defense attorney exists purely to make sure the rights of the accused are not violated. They are not the judge. They are not the jury. They are there to defend the person the way the person wants to be defended. If the person wants to say they're guilty, then they will give that to the court. But if they say not guilty because of X, the attorney is going to defend them based on that choice of how they're going to plead. It does not matter what a defense attorney's personal opinion is. And honestly, again, if a defense attorney goes on television and says, well, I know my client is guilty, but it's my job to be a defense attorney, so I've got to defend them because anyway, even though I agree with you, I know they're guilty. Oh, I know the things they did were horrible. I hate it too, but this is my job. If they were to do that, they'd get disbarred, because that would be a total and complete violation of their contract with their client. They're not supposed to offer up opinion. They're just supposed to defend. Let me know what you think in the comments. Does this bother you too? I will talk to you soon with more videos. Thank you for watching. If you haven't done so, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. I'll talk to you soon.